Hello and welcome back to Random Librarians here on YouTube and also to whatever the heck my bangs are doing. I feel like I started my quarantine bang journey and they just did whatever I wanted, and now we're getting to the point where they're like, we let you have it too easy. So I don't know if they start separating or whatever. We're just gonna ignore it. So like, don't look at the upper third of my face. But the actual point of today's video is to talk about the Storygraph because they are now out of beta. They have an app and it's very exciting. So the Storygraph is a different way to track your reading stats and track what you're reading, give you all of the information. It is, in my opinion, elevating what we've been using Goodreads for such a long time. And it's not associated with a big corporation. It is started by someone that you can find on Instagram, and they give all these like behind the scenes and it's very cool. But we're not gonna talk about the founder or the coder or any of the team today. We're just talking about the app, so we'll keep it nice and simple. So I was using Storygraph, the beta, on my computer for the longest time, but that's not going to be done on the computer today, just to know that like the computer and the app do function essentially the same and both are pretty seamless. So let me just set up the screen recording and then we'll do the little insert, probably over here, of walking through it, doing the whole jam. So this is the Storygraph app. What's interesting about the app is that you don't actually go into the app store to download it. You open the Storygraph website on your phone and then they have steps you can follow to have it show up as an app on your screen, which I found really cool. It was pretty easy actually, and this is kind of huge for me because I have an Android phone. Don't hate me for that. And as a result, sometimes things that are available on the Apple Store are not yet available on Android, but they kind of just completely jumped that whole hurdle. They just were like, no, we're just gonna do it a completely new way that I personally had never seen before. So if we're looking at here now, your home screen shows what you're currently reading at the top, recommendations, to read pile, and then different books that are newly added or like maybe you hadn't seen on the Storygraph. So that is the home screen. Something new that they've done since since getting out of beta, since launching this new version, I don't really know the lingo, I'm sorry, is that now you can actually click into something. So if I go into the Starlist C here, you can update the percentage. Actually, I have updated the percentage since I'm listening to it on Libby right now, so I'm just gonna do a little live updating. So 72%, just tap it right in, save, ta-da, tells you when you started reading the book, gives you the description. So kind of what you would expect of an app to help you track reading, but then it goes into the different ratings, the moods people assign it, the pace. I love these questions at the bottom because it gives you kind of a way to structure your review if you're not the kind of person who just like has their fully formed English essay come out of them when it's time to review. So strong character development, lovable characters, diverse cast of characters, flaws of characters center stage, and then an average rating. So that is all incredibly important things to know about, in my opinion, which is great. So what's also cool at the top is that you can mark it as owned. It gives you a link to buy the book, or you can browse different editions. So if you're reading an edition that isn't the version that first pops up when you search the title, that's really cool. Like I said, you can follow the Storygraph on Instagram and kind of get the behind the scenes. So I know that the coding that they're doing right now is helping to put the most likely book when you search a title as the first result. The example they gave was when people are searching the word becoming, more often than not, they're probably searching for Michelle Obama's book. But a lot of the time, other titles that contained the word becoming were popping up first. So it involved a little bit of coding, from what I understand, to make sure that the book people are actually looking for was the one that was more likely to pop up on top, which is very cool. Storygraph has a lot of like really cool features. So the explore page is really interesting. So you can do it by mood, you can do it by pace, like there's so many different ways you can just like narrow down a recommendation. So if you're like me and like really bad at making decisions, this is a great way to do it. If you mark all of the books that you have as owned, you can even do it from like your own bookshelf. So I think this could be really helpful for people who are trying to like shop their shelves or maybe on a book buying ban in terms of what to read next. So that is pretty cool. And yes, okay, at the beginning when you first set it, you get to set your reading preferences, which is what I just clicked into here and it made me think of it. So you tell the Storygraph the kind of things that you like to read, and that helps it with the recommendations feature. So, favorite genres, what kind of books you like to read, characteristics you appreciate the most, genres you don't like, aren't interested in reading right now. I didn't do that because I kind of like everything. And things that turn you off about books the most. And you can even put like things that you would never want to read, which is, I think, very wonderful. So then, the thing that I really like the most about Storygraph, we're gonna go to your Storygraph, which is a setting. So you can do, this is your currently reading. It gives you kind of a sense into what you normally pick up. So that I think is really, really interesting because it takes into account your reading preferences, but also they give you stats, which is so cool. Like, I just want to nerd out on this forever because who doesn't love a good like pie graph? Give me all of the pie graphs. So we have, of 2021, we have 7 books read, a total of 2,605 pages. So good job, self. Apparently that means I am on track to read the 150 books that I set as my reading goal. That actually is kind of high, but I read 145 books in 2020, which was really surprising to me. 2020 was the first year that I ever tracked my reading. So I don't really know what is normal, so I just went with something that was higher than last year for this year. So here we go. I mean, it does get kind of stressful. It has been kind of stressful in these first couple of weeks of 2021 because where it now says, nice work, you are on track, before it would say something along the lines of, don't freak out, but you are behind by X number of books, which of course made me freak out. Let's be real. So as a result, I ended up reading a lot of graphic novels over the past week, and I think that is going to be another video because I have a lot of thoughts about things that I have read. So, moods so far have been pretty dark and mysterious. I'm in the middle of reading the Throne of Glass series, which I believe is probably why that is the case. Also, the Starless Sea is pretty mysterious. I don't really know where we're going with this, but you know, it's good. For the most part, I'll look into my 2020 stats after this, but I feel like a lot of what I read has a medium or slow pace as decided by the people on the Storygraph who assign those values, which is pretty cool. Yeah, a lot of what I read falls in the 300-400 page range. So right now, as you can see, if you click into it, it shows you what books it's talking about when it does that. So like the 500 page plus value is only 2 books, but if I click into it, it shows you that those 2 books are both pretty medium to slow paced and dark and mysterious. So there you go. I just absolutely love that it gives you all of this information. I think it's just very cool in terms of understanding your own preferences and understanding what you're reading, when you're reading it. As you see here, you can get like a sense of the whole year. It gives you a line graph of how many books are going on and how many pages are read over the different months. So it tends to go, ooh, which is pretty cool. I haven't been reading things on the Storygraph yet, really, because I kind of like that I don't have to. And you don't have to on Goodreads either, but they make it much more like, you should be giving this a star rating, because it is right there, and the review's right there when you go to say, like, I finished this book. So I kind of like that the Storygraph is a little bit more chill about it. I do have to say that. Okay, so let's see. So far, I've not read any nonfiction. It is something that I'm trying to read more of in 2021. And now I'm going to show you my stats for 2020. Yeah, so the moods there are a little bit more varied, but dark and mysterious are still up there, in addition with emotional and adventurous, which feels right. So This is one of the things that kind of bothered me about Storygraph last year. So at the end of 2020, I read a bunch of volumes of Saga, the graphic novel, on Libby, and none of them are on the Storygraph. So because it is a newer resource, it is a newer way of tracking books, it doesn't have all of the books that I've been reading in their database yet. So according to the Storygraph, I read 138 books last year, 48,510 pages, but I know it's more than that because it didn't count the 7 other books that I've read. Just something to be aware of. So like I said, medium pace is the thing that I tend to read most of, 300 to 499 pages. This is why I really need to read a little bit more of nonfiction in 2021, because that is 9 nonfiction books. I think it clicked into fiction, not nonfiction. So of those 9 nonfiction books, let's give a little check. Yeah, those are some good ones actually. So that's pretty cool. The only one that these 2 I didn't really love. I'm So Glad You're Here, a memoir, and Older But Better But Older were like not great in my opinions. But the others were all very, very good, including this graphic novel memoir by Robin Ha, which was just incredibly well done. Paris on Air, I read this book for a Zoom author interview, and it was super fun. The book is also very, very fun. Oliver G is a podcaster in Paris, and the audiobook for it is just mind-blowing. Okay, wait, we need to go back to my stats for 2020. Yeah, this feels right. I read a lot of fantasy and young adult in 2020. This is also pretty cool when it goes to showing you the number of books that you read. So I know October was a really good reading month for me because I actually took a week of vacation during October when my friend Shelby was here. So we read a lot together while she was here. And there you go, that kind of shows how that is. I think you can click in. It's sometimes easier to click in on the computer than it is on the little screen, but that's fine. So this star rating system shows you things like that. Something that people really love about the Storygraph is that you can give quarter stars. So you don't have to round up or round down. You actually get the option to have a 4.08 average rating is what I have. And that is incredibly cool. If you are worried about how much work goes into switching it over, there is actually a way to just import your Goodreads information over to the Storygraph, and then you can fiddle with the stars and the ratings after the fact. So let's see, if I go to, okay, so I'm bouncing around a lot. So we got the reading goal, which you can change, edit. There are different ones that you can add, which is pretty cool. So onboarding reading challenge, genre challenge, translation challenge. Then there are people who can make their own, and I've seen things like reading more anti-racist books, different kinds of prompts that people can come up with, and even Among Us made its way onto the Storygraph. There are just LibroFM 2021 audiobook challenge. We love it. Yeah, so there are so many different ways to kind of gamify your reading on the Storygraph. I'm going to go back to my Storygraph, and if I go into a recent read, I can show you the different star rating system. So here we are. You can add tags, which is very cool. Add a review. So this is kind of what I was talking about in terms of it gives you a framework for your review. So you can click into the different things to tell people if you're looking for something that is adventurous, emotional, Yeah, I think those are the two I'm gonna pick out of this list. Medium paste. I'm just not gonna answer these because I don't. Her development of characters is kind of all over the place. Sometimes characters are conveniently strong, and then you kind of forget that they were strong in that way because they face the exact same situation later and they're conveniently weak so that someone can come and rescue them, usually of a male fae variety. I really don't like her use of male and female. I understand that she's trying to be like, but like they're not women and men because women and men are humans. But like, I just hate those words as descriptors. I feel like people who use female in real life always do it in a kind of misogynistic way. And maybe not always, but like people on the internet. Don't call me a female. I am a woman. That was a tangent. Yeah, so it's all of this. The main thing I was coming here is to show the star rating system. So you can do, let's see, this was like high 3s, low 4s for me, I think. I really like this series. I think it's really fun. I like it so much more than I liked the ACOTAR series, but my rating system, I don't think is very consistent, because like there will be things that I read that I'm reading more critically, whereas this is kind of like I'm reading it with like head empty, no thoughts. It's just fun. I probably should have picked something that I like know I really like as a way of showing you guys the system, but you can do like 3.25. I think you can do, let's see, can I do like 7.5? I don't think 1.5 is an option. I think it has to be quarter stars. It's not yelling at me when I try to do that. It would probably fix it if I did save review. But I believe it's quarter stars, which is already so much better. So you can wrap, I really like also the way that they kind of walk you through ways that you can be more helpful as a reviewer. So showing people the like minimal tagging that you have to do to wrap a spoiler so that it doesn't get shown in the text. The way they've coded it is that you just have to have an open tag saying the word spoiler and then a closed tag with the word spoiler in it as well, as a way of blocking that text out for people who haven't read it before. I really love the way that you're able to add content warnings. So this is really important for books that might not be shown when people on Bookstagram are talking about them as having like things that could actually like fuck people up. So the book that I read recently that I had not seen any kind of content warnings for, or I'd seen some, but like not some of the things that like really shocked me when I was reading it. So I was reading The Secret History and they start like hinting at incest really early on in the book, and I was like, no one's talked about this, it can't be real. And then you get to the end of the book and it's like, oh shit, no, there actually was incest in this book. What the fuck? Why did no one warn me about that? Like, that is something that could really like send someone on a dangerous path if that's something that they're sensitive to, and it's a book that is recommended all the time. So it's just an example. So in this case, you're able to put in content warnings if they're graphic, if they're moderate, or if they're minor. So like if it's something that's only mentioned once. I think an example of that I've seen is for A Very Punchable Face. People who I've seen who are using the Storygraph and who have read that book, which I have not finished, so you know, I'm spoiling for myself. There's a mention of, I believe, excrement, and they put that as a minor brief mention or description. So I just think that these content warnings and the fact that they're part of the review structure of this website is a really great way to take care of fellow readers who maybe need to be careful about their mental health while reading. So that was a quick kind of overview of the Storygraph, the features I use, the ones that I haven't really made use of yet, but that I think are really, really cool. They are listening really to the people who are using the app, and as a result, are making the app better all the time. They're also obviously massive readers themselves, which I think is where the quarter star ratings system first came through. Basically, I'm a huge fan of the Storygraph. If I had to pick between Goodreads and the Storygraph, I would pick the Storygraph every time. I am still currently using both because I want to have the backup of that information of how many books I actually read if for some reason the book that I'm thinking of or the book that I'm currently reading is not on the Storygraph, because I don't want that to be a limiting factor on the things that I want to read this year. If I did have one recommendation for how the Storygraph could be even, you know, more improved upon, even though it's so close to perfection, I would go into my little librarian brain and say a way to kind of like quick add a title, or at least request that a title be added to the team, could be a great resource. So if you had kind of like a bare bones cataloging system that a user could input the different information that they had, like title, publisher, author, number of pages, ISBN if they have it, that could be a really great way to reduce the work on the team to be constantly adding different books and make the reading selection on the Storygraph a little bit more flexible, a little bit more growth positive. I don't really know the word I'm searching for there, but I think it would be a good feature to add to the system. So that's kind of all I have to say. Please let me know in the comments if you have used the Storygraph, if you are planning to now that you've seen how great it is. Anything you want to put down there, I'd be happy to respond. Comments kind of make my day. So yeah, I never know how to end these things, but I hope you enjoyed the video and that I will be back with some more librarian or bookish content soon. Thank you so much for watching. Bye.